So this is very much one of those everyday problems that I think has a massive potential to change women's lives and increase productivity, actually, globally. So, kind of a brief outline. I'm just going to go through, what we know, why it matters, what we did in this kind of preliminary study, what we found, and then just kind of summarize on where we are with periods. So, what do we know? Well, firstly, it's a big population, right? Women of reproductive age are about a third of the population of England. It's about 18 million people here, obviously similar kind of numbers rest of the world. And really heavy menstrual bleeding and period pain are really common in women of reproductive age. So heavy menstrual bleeding, about 1 in 4 women will experience that at any one time. And what that means is it's bleeding that interferes with the quality of life. So typically it's when your bleeding is so heavy that you regularly bleed through your sanitary towels or tampons, you leak, you bleed on things. It's one of the most embarrassing things that can happen to you in daily life. And actually it can be so debilitating that many women, if they have this, they will not leave the house during their period. And a survey by the Menstrual Health Coalition showed that women consider the stigma around heavy menstrual bleeding to be about 8 out of 10, where 10 is the highest. So it's highly embarrassing and stigmatizing. For pain, so severely painful periods are, again, they're periods that interfere with your daily life. You cannot function normally when you have them. And about 1 in 5 women will experience severely painful periods at any one time. It's most common in younger women. But anywhere between half to 3/4 of women do experience some pain and some discomfort with every period. Again, it's really common. But unsurprisingly, the women who experience severe menstrual pain report significantly lower quality of life than women who don't. It really can blight women's lives. So why does it matter? Well, firstly, there's a productivity issue, right? There have been several studies done now. In the US, they estimate that 600 million working hours are lost every year to period pain. In Japan, this is now 20 years ago, the study, they reckoned it was about $4 billion a year it cost the Japanese economy. In Sweden, they showed that women with heavy menstrual bleeding miss significantly more work than people without. Again, women just do not want to leave the house when this happens. We know that it really matters in education. In young women, these problems are more prevalent. It significantly disrupts young women's education. About a third of girls regularly miss days out of school for one of these issues. And actually doing this study really put me back to being at school as a teenager and being in the toilet, cramped over in pain for hours and not being able to move. And those who do attend perform less well if they're in pain. Again, this isn't surprising, but if you think about really important times in a woman's life, like exams or interviews, it can massively affect your performance if you happen to be on your period. In 2017, a large survey in the Netherlands concluded that actually menstruation-related symptoms cause a great deal of lost productivity. They estimated 9 days per woman per year. And actually a lot of that problem is presenteeism. It's not just people who are missing work, it's people who feel they have to go to work but actually then can't really function. And only 20% of women, if they did miss work, told their boss why. Again, there's a lot of stigma. We just don't talk about it. And this also affects how likely women are to seek care for their issues. So for period pain, research Harvard School of Public Health is currently doing a women's health study with Apple. They found that stigma prevents women from seeking healthcare for pain. In Japan, they estimate that 1.6 million women there have severe period pain, that's kind of functional period pain, and most of them do not receive the guideline treatments. There is treatments, and most people just aren't accessing them. In 2019, another review looked at young women and said that they think of pain as normal, something to be endured as part of being a woman. And we're told this from the very youngest of ages, but it means that actually we live less productive and less happy lives as a result. If we're thinking about heavy menstrual bleeding, the Royal College of Nursing is currently saying, look, we have a national guideline for heavy menstrual bleeding. We actually do know how to treat it. That guideline has been available for more than 10 years. But many women are left undiagnosed and untreated. It's partly because they don't know, right? We're not told as women what's normal. What's a normal amount of blood? What's a normal amount of pain? There's stigma, so people don't want to come forward. There's under-recognition by health people. So often you go to the doctor, you're dismissed. And even if you aren't, then there's poor access to services. There's also less research. In 2021, there was a large US study that looked at diseases that primarily affect men are overfunded. and diseases that primarily affect women are underfunded compared to diseases that affect both, and also compared to the health burden. So here's just an example, right? Over the last 5 years, I looked up papers about sexual dysfunction in men and looked up papers around menstrual issues in women. And what I found was, that over the last 5 years, there have been over 3,500 papers on sexual dysfunction in men, but fewer than 1,000 papers on menstrual disorders. There is just a fundamental imbalance on how we treat men's diseases and women's diseases in medicine. This is now starting to be recognised, but too little is being done about it. So to say you get through the care seeking, are there treatments? There are treatments for heavy menstrual bleeding. They often actually involve procedures in hospitals, and too few women are accessing them, and it takes far too long for women to access them. Period pain actually has two main treatments. The first is just over-the-counter painkillers, right? That hasn't changed in 50 years. Typically things like ibuprofen. Now, they're good, but they don't work in about 25 to 40% of women. About 20% of women can't take them because they have other health conditions. So if you have gut problems, for instance, you can't take them. And they can have adverse health impact if you take them for a long time. There's also the contraceptive pill or long-lasting implants. They can work, they work for many women, but again, 15% of women, they don't work, and many women don't want to be on long-term contraception for a variety of reasons. And a 2013 review concluded that actually there are many potential treatments for period pain, but there just is not enough research into what works. There isn't a strong evidence base for any of this. So again, the Royal College of Nursing just says, menstrual health is a really important part of a woman's life, but it's undertreated, underdiagnosed, and common health problems just keep going on. So what did we do? Well, a lot of the research so far is based on surveys or once women access hospital care. That's kind of the two big things. So we know that there is a reluctance to seek care, but we don't actually know how that translates into how women use GPs. So what we wanted to do is look at, how many women are going to their GPs with this problem? How does that tell us the scale of the problem, given that we know that's kind of maybe not the tip of the iceberg, but the top of the mountain? So we looked at 2013, and after eligibility and data quality, we ended up with GP data in this kind of preliminary work for about 207,000 women who were between 13 and 54 years old, and they had data for at least 3 or 4 years. So we wanted to have a good chunk of data to see how they use GPs. And from this, we looked for diagnosis codes with 2 GPs indicating either period pain or heavy menstrual bleeding. And again, this is probably an undercount because it relies on a woman mentioning it, but then a GP actually adding it to their record. So not all GPs would necessarily do that. And from this data, we then estimated the rate of new visits per year of age. So every year of your age, how likely are you to go to your GP for the first time for one of these issues? And then also, what's your lifetime likelihood of visiting the GP for one of these issues? And just remember for this, for every woman who seeks care, who we've got in our data set, there'll be many others who are not and who are just at home. So what did we find? So looking at the percentage of women who are seeing their GP for the first time for heavy bleeding by age, you get this plot. So age is here on the bottom, and this is the percentage of women of that age who go to their GP for the first time. So you see a big spike at the beginning when your periods start. It's quite common at the beginning that you get heavy menstrual bleeding, and you see kind of teenage women going to their GP at that point. Then new onset problems. So it doesn't mean there's a drop here. That doesn't mean that it's resolving. This is kind of new onset. But for many women in their 20s and early 30s, they actually are on hormonal contraception, and that naturally helps reduce the problem. And then you get a second spike as women get older, and at menopause you get a second spike where heavy menstrual bleeding starts for women. Now, even though during every year these are quite small proportions of women, it adds up over time. And if you look at it cumulatively, by the time you're 54, by the time you end up here, about 43% of women have seen their GP at least once for heavy menstrual bleeding. And again, these are the women that are seeking care that we know are totally not all women who have this problem. If we look at period pain, it's a slightly different picture. Here, it's very much, your first visit is much more likely to be as a teenager. And then if you don't have pain as a teenager, you're less likely to develop severe pain in periods later on. But again, it adds up over time, and by the time you're 54, about 20% of women have seen their GP for period pain. And looking at it kind of just in terms of, okay, let's not worry about first visits, let's just look at visits overall. From our data, we estimate that every year, about 3% of all women of reproductive age will see their GP for one of these problems. And that translates to about 600,000 GP visits a year. And this is actually much smaller than the number of women who are out there suffering. So there is this issue of women, not enough women coming forward for care. Now, the other thing we looked at is, okay, well, if you have come to see your GP, are you only seeing them once and your problem gets resolved, or are you seeing them multiple times? And what happens is that about half of all women who'd been at least once have been more than once. So that's suggesting that they're coming back either because the treatment's not working or it's come back. And over 1,000 women, so 0.6% of our sample, had been more than 10 times to see their GP in our data set. This is over, a few years. And so it suggests there's a significant proportion of women who actually are really suffering and not getting treatment. And we know from the really severe end, things like endometriosis, that it can take 6 to 8, 10 years before you receive a proper diagnosis and care. So I just kind of want to summarize, where we are with periods. Is, menstrual problems, they're not life-threatening, right? Menstrual problems in themselves aren't going to kill you. They do resolve every month and ultimately with menopause. And I think that's partly why they haven't been taken as seriously as they should have been by the medical profession. But they do cause misery to millions of women. It can and it does affect our education, it affects our careers, it affects our mental health, it affects our lives. For the really severe end, things like endometriosis, a lot of women end up contemplating suicide because it's so awful. And I think this idea that it's normal is just something that we have to get out of. If we think about things like childbirth, death in childbirth was normal. We didn't just accept it. I don't think we should just accept the blight that periods cause on women. Problems tend to start, and they tend to be worst at puberty, at the onset of periods. But for some women, they do not resolve. And for many women, they either come back or they start during menopause. And if you're thinking about puberty, it's a delicate time in a woman's life, and much of the information that young girls get about periods is from their peers. It's not accurate, and they just don't know how to ask for help or how to seek help. And there's still a lot of stigma there. The Menstrual Health Coalition, in their survey, was talking to teenage girls, and they said they often get told by boys that it's disgusting, they don't want to hear about it, and they feel ashamed of having their period. Treatments do exist, but too few women access them. Again, it's due to social taboos, to stigma, to not knowing what normal is. We just do not have those conversations, right? So people are told it's normal to have pain, but how much pain? It's normal to bleed, obviously, it's a period, but how much is too much, right? We need to be having those discussions. We need to be having them with men as well as with women. GP visits for heavy menstrual bleeding are more common than for pain. And while it could be that it's just more disruptive or it's more likely to be asked about because of anemia, we don't really know. But it could be as well because women are told to accept pain and so don't go to their GP over it. And we know that treatments are under-resourced compared to disorders that affect men. So even with reduced care seeking, a significant number of women go to their GP because of menstrual problems. So even all of that, we're still seeing a lot of women going, right? This is a big problem. And well over half of us have been by the time of 54, and actually that surprised us. We thought it would be lower. We thought fewer women would actually seek out care. So I just want to end on a final thought. There was a 2020 survey study that looked at the acceptance of pain for periods. And they were looking at the other kind of chronic pain literature, and they said, for some people with chronic pain, it can be more helpful to recognize that pain cannot always be avoided or controlled, and that it is still possible to have a meaningful life and continue with valued activity. So their hypothesis was that women who accept period pain have a higher quality of life. And they went and they asked women who had chronic pain, and they looked at people who actively tried to manage their pain and people who just accepted their pain. And they concluded that women who accepted their pain reported a higher quality of life than those who tried to actively manage it. And they actually then suggested that initiatives to increase pain acceptance among women with menstrual pain are worthwhile. Now, I think this is really problematic because this is something that there is a treatment for, right? And they also reported in the same study that most women were just using over-the-counter painkillers. Many of them said they didn't work. They also found that independently of how they try to manage their pain or not, that the more pain they're in, the lower their quality of life. And they kind of mentioned as an aside, oh, well, maybe quality of life with menstrual pain could be increased by improved pain management. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it could. Whether that's better painkillers, whether that's prescription painkillers, whether that's contraception, or some of the other treatments that are possible. So I think, as a society, we need to just stop accepting women's pain and discomfort during periods and start doing a hell of a lot better at improving it. You see a new drug for erectile dysfunction every few months, right? Why are there no new drugs for period pain in the last 40 years? So I'm just going to end on that as a kind of a call to action for us to recognise that this is an issue and we need to do something about it. Thank you.